Hi, I'm Nick Brooke. I work for Chaosium as one of their community ambassadors, and I specialize in supporting the Jonstown Compendium, which is our community content program for RuneQuest and the world of Glorantha on TTRPG, and on supporting the Miskatonic repository, which is our community content program for 7th edition Call of Cthulhu and Lovecraftian investigations. The first thing is to love what you do and be proud of it. It doesn't matter if your scenario, your idea, isn't like anything you've seen before. That's a selling point. If it's what you want to publish, if it's a scenario you enjoyed running, you enjoyed writing it, you've got a feel for it, please publish it as is. Don't mutilate it to fit into somebody else's template or somebody else's idea of what a Call of Cthulhu scenario or a RuneQuest scenario is meant to be. Make the thing that gives you joy. Second piece of advice is when it comes to the design of your thing, go crazy. Don't say, oh, they've given me a template. The template says it's got to be 2 columns, US letter, using such and such a font for headlines. That's a baseline. That's, if you don't know what you're doing, you can use our templates. If you've got a feel for what you want it to look like, transcend them, make your thing look striking and different and interesting and original. And the third thing I'd say is have friends. Get people to playtest your things at least once. It doesn't have to be more than once. You don't need a sort of playtesting infrastructure of people who will do double-blind playtests where a GM who isn't you runs your things for players who aren't you and submit feedback on questionnaires so you can know how to improve it. You don't need that. I don't have that myself. But have at least some people you can play your game for so you know it works, and they will give you great ideas in the playtest, and you get to write those back into your scenario and pretend they were there all along. And when you publish, all you have to do is give them a playtest credit. That's all that's expected. And a free digital copy and an at-cost print copy if it comes to that. And the second thing I'd advise you to do is you don't necessarily need to hire a professional editor, although if you read any scenario reviews by professional editors, they will always tell you to hire a professional editor. But you should have at least somebody who you trust to read through your stuff and point out where you missed something, you didn't explain something, you assumed everybody knew something, or you just plain got it wrong. And all that takes is one read through once from somebody who's an honest friend, and it will massively improve whatever it is you're putting out. What I want to see is more authors. The real thing I want to see is more people realizing how easy, how cheap, and how gratifying it is to publish community content. It really is simple. All you need to do is have an internet connection and the ability to write. I'm going to say write in English because I'm English, but actually if you want to write in Italian or French or German or Japanese, those have all been published through our program too. If you want to publish in a language that hasn't previously been published on the community content program, please reach out to me first, nick.brooke@chaosium.com. I'm sure Kat will add that to the show notes. Just to make sure, because we want to make sure any publishers with whom we have deals you may not be aware of, allowing the publication of Call of Cthulhu in certain languages, we want to make sure they're cool with what you're doing. And up till now, they've always said, yeah, sure, that's fine by us. If I was you, I would write the first scenario of your campaign as a standalone thing with a satisfactory beginning, middle, and end in the space of 2 or 3 dozen pages, stop, and publish that. If what you've got makes no sense, well, that's maybe all of your campaign that anyone ever gets to experience, and maybe you should finesse it up. If it's got hooks into part 2 of the campaign, leave those as dangling loose ends at the end of it. Maybe write a little afterwards, say, and I'd like to write part 2. But whatever you do, I think that if you set out with the idea that you're going to write the next globe-spanning Call of Cthulhu campaign, you may have set your sights too high. You're better off writing a scenario and finding out if people like your scenarios and what they like about them. And if you think about it, it's like, the first parts of Masks of Nyarlathotep are fairly self-contained. You're in Peru or you're in New York. There are hints of something going on beyond what you're engaged with, but what you're engaged with is here, it's immediate, it's now. You would be happy if you'd bought either of those as a standalone scenario. The fact that then the same authors are going on to do more and go deeper and follow up the loose ends, the breadcrumbs they've left from the previous ones, is gravy. I like things that are very easy for anyone to pick up and run with. So on the RuneQuest side of things, if you write something that the pre-gen characters from our starter set box or from the core rulebook could just walk into, situations where Vasana and her friends could turn up and be hired by somebody or find a problem that needs fixing, and they're the kind of people who can fix it. That's great, because that's the kind of play that Chaosium is encouraging. If you write a scenario where, in order to play it, everyone has to be from a certain family and live in this village and know a local piece of law, and that's who they are and that's where they're from, that can be brilliant. The best-selling thing on the Jonstown Compendium for RuneQuest is a scenario, a campaign in fact, that's exactly that. You all live in an isolated mountain valley with no connection with the outside world, and you learn about Glorantha through play, which is great. Generally speaking, I'd advise against doing that. I would advise to write scenarios that normal people playing normal RuneQuest can walk into and find the hooks and get involved in, where you don't have to say, well, this scenario will work, but one of the players has to worship Hele, the bisexual god of rain. With Call of Cthulhu, my big recommendation is write one-shot adventures with pre-generated investigators who absolutely dovetail into that adventure, who've got interests and drives and motivations that mean they're going to have a whale of a time, even if they are foredoomed to some kind of horrific fate, because that's very Lovecraftian. I'd much rather have a one-off horror situation, which may or may not be Lovecraftian, and characters that fit into it, so you can pick it up, hand it out to people, play, have fun, and do something else next evening. If you're publishing through our programs, you need to be writing for our games. But this is where it's easier to talk to RuneQuest people, so I'll do this directly. We call you a game master. That means we have faith in you to know how to run our game. If you run our game by ignoring some of the rules, just write something exciting that encourages people to ignore our game's rules, and that's cool by us. What you can't do is use somebody else's rules in a thing you publish through our program, because we don't have the rights to let you do that. If you want to write D&D scenarios set in Glorantha, that's going to hit a roadblock fairly quickly. If you're writing for Call of Cthulhu, it has to be for the current 7th edition of the rules, and the reason for that is that that's the one we sell. Chaosium is a business, we're a publisher. We aren't currently publishing the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th or 6th editions of Call of Cthulhu, so we don't really want to drive sales to those, lovely though they were. What we generally advise is, if you've written a scenario that needs some rules expansions, like you've written Arctic scenario and you've got some Arctic survival rules in there, that's absolutely cool, because it's intrinsic to the thing you've plotted out. The adventure you've got needs those extra rules for repairing steamships or surviving in the Arctic. What we don't want is a source book that is just extra rules for Call of Cthulhu, generally speaking. There have been exceptions in the past. We would generally say, please don't do that. Don't write a replacement combat system. Don't write a replacement magic system, because we want everything that people are publishing to be usable with our game as is. When you're writing on the Miskatonic repository for Call of Cthulhu or the Jonstown Compendium for RuneQuest and Glorantha, you are allowed to use anything Chaosium has published in your own adventure's backstory. Now, there are limits on that. There are some things Chaosium's only published by agreement with the estates of various dead authors, or by agreement with various living and highly litigious authors. We can't let you know that. We do our best to warn you off. We tell you how to read the copyright notices at the front of our books, and if it says we've used something with permission, we can't delegate that permission to you. But in general, what we've published is a playground for you to use, take stuff from, and build your own original material out of it. We don't mean cut and paste stuff out of our books into your scenario. That's not what it's about. You can't use Chaosium's third-party licensed material in your Miskatonic repository submissions unless they are by the wonderful people at Golden Goblin Press for Cthulhu Invictus. They are happy and delighted that people want to write Cthulhu Invictus stuff, and they've said, as far as they're concerned, it's absolutely cool that there is Cthulhu Invictus community content in our program. But for other things that are maybe licensed Call of Cthulhu derivatives from Chaosium, like Achtung Cthulhu back in the day from Odysseus, or The Laundry back in the day from Cubicle 7, unfortunately, we can't let you use those games' rules or those games' settings on the Miskatonic, because we don't own them, and we'd be mad if we tried to let you. In our setting books, we usually have an example town. So San Rafael in Down Darker Trails, or I can't remember the name of it, in Regency Cthulhu. Now, the idea of those settings is they're really easy places for a new keeper to say, well, I'm going to start my game up. We know where you live. We know who the local occult weirdos are. We know who the local suppliers are. You can base your adventure out of here. There are already loads of ideas for scenarios you could do around here, adventure hooks, investigations, whatever. We are delighted if you want to build on one of our settings and say, well, this adventure begins in this place that you can read about in the Chaosium book, and you can interact with these NPCs and with this bit of local lore that's out of Chaosium book, and then you knock yourself out with it and go wild and crazy and write something original and innovative that is really easy for another keeper to plug into their stuff. I do think when you're writing a scenario, signpost things. Make it very easy for the keeper, who after all is delivering this to their group, to know what is important and must be delivered. Don't blind them with science. Don't write a multi-page article about what's in the particular room you're in if the key things are that they need to see the dead body on the floor and the revolver that's still smoking on the mantelpiece. Now, the amount you expand beyond that is up to you, but as a keeper, you really need to map out your scenario and make it very easy for the keeper running it. So as the author, you need to map this out and make it very easy for the keeper running it to deliver the important details, and then you can extrapolate beyond that. If you love running all the details of exactly what Regency frocking is like, as a keeper, do that yourself. Extemporize. Your players know you. Your players probably tolerate you because they're still your players, and that may be the kind of thing they get off on. But if you're writing for publication and you feel the need to include an annex on the secret Victorian language of fans that isn't relevant to your game, think twice. Another thing that's really important is if you can actually make it very easy for people to run your stuff by including diagrams, flowcharts, highlighting there's going to be a whole section about this item because it's critical to the scenario. Here is a picture of it as a handout. I'm going to show you on my chart when the players will come across it and what they can do once they've got it. That will make the keeper's job easier, and if the keeper's job is easier, they'll think, hey, this is a cool author, I like them, I'm going to buy the next thing they bring out. If you've brought out Scenario 1 and you publish Scenario 2, you will probably see a spike in sales of Scenario 1 because people who like Scenario 2 will say, I'm interested in other works by the same author. There is a kind of diminishing returns thing, which is a little bit sad. So we've brought out 4 volumes in the Sandheart campaign, and book 1 has sold more than book 2, has sold more than book 3, has sold more than book 4. But book 1 wouldn't have sold so many if it hadn't been for books 2, 3, and 4. And I totally get it. You can buy our first book, you can read it, you can say, this isn't what I wanted, and then you don't buy 2, 3, and 4. You can buy our first book and our second book and say, I've now got enough for many months of happy adventuring, and not buy 3 and 4. But in general, if you publish something and it's popular and people like it, and you publish something else, you'll see spike in the sales of your first thing as well as the second thing when it comes up. If they're thematically linked, if you can say, well, this is a sequel to, or a thematic sequel to, or this works well with, or here's something that the same pre-gens could get involved in next, and gradually build up your campaign that way, that's great. And of course you can upgrade the older things. My first scenario, The Duel at Dangerford, had no original art. It borrowed stuff from a Victorian public domain poetry books illustrations. The current edition has all the art the Japanese made for it when they did the Japanese translation, where I asked, can I use that? And they said, yes, please. And it looks gorgeous now because it's been illustrated up the wazoo. And that's a free upgrade to people who bought the older versions. As a closing thing to say, I will say, please write something for our community content programs. I used to think I couldn't write scenarios. And then I wrote a scenario and somehow it worked. And lots of people bought it. It's a platinum bestseller nowadays, and it was a thing that I just run with my RuneQuest group, and I thought, well, maybe other people will like it, and it turns out they did. Don't worry if what you do is quirky and unique, and you've never seen anything done quite like that before. That's actually what people are after. They're looking for new ways of doing things, for different ways of doing things. It may be that what you do, the way you do it, is exactly what people have been waiting for. Don't feel you have to fit yourself into a template or only comply with the way things have been done before. Take a bit of care about what you're using. If it's Chaosium, anything that's ours, we want you to use it, we encourage you to use it, but where we only used it with somebody else's permission, we can't delegate that to you. We wish we could. But that's it, just try it. Write something small, write something simple, give it some pre-gen characters. It's very easy. You can publish something that's 20 pages, 24 pages, 36 pages, on the Miskatonic repository, on the Jonstown Compendium, see how it goes. Write it so people can pick it up and play with it. If you have a unique, weird, personal, weird worldview that informs everything you write, you could tell us all about it in a scenario if you want, or just write something that works the way you see the world. I see the world differently to other people. That's why I write the way I do. And it seems to work, and I wouldn't change it for anything. Please, just write. And if you need help with any aspect of getting a thing ready to publish, reach out. There are people who want to help you. They're on our Creators Circle groups in Facebook, the Miskatonic Repository Creators Circle, the Jonstown Compendium Creators Circle, and I'm sure there'll be others in the future when we open up the Pendragon, the King Arthur Pendragon program, the Companions of Arthur. There are people out there who love drawing for, doing maps for, helping with layout, advising on editing, all kinds of things. And eventually, at the end of the day, the final boss monster is me, and I'll help you get your things ready for print, because you deserve it.